Welcome to episode number 5 of the Castbar. Mythic Highmaul has opened, and the race for World First was a strenuous one. A recent nerf raises the question of just how public Blizzard should be. We're going to examine a few changes to the accessibility of this game to new players over the years, and we are on the right track for your weekly review. Thank you, and enjoy. Welcome to the Castbar, the World of Warcraft Podcast, channeling your content with no interrupts. Today is Sunday, December 14th. I am your host, Michael, and with me as always, I have Evan.
How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great, and Florian.
Hey there.
So how's your guys' week been?
Pretty good. Guild make a little bit more progress, working on Highmaul normal mode, having a lot of fun with that. And getting more and more followers up to epic level and gearing them up, looking for those item level 645 missions.
I've actually
coming along quite nicely.
I've been avoiding those. I have a whole bunch of followers that are right around 630, and I haven't quite pushed them up to that 645 yet. I've just been like, I don't have enough. I just now got my Dwarven Bunker upgraded to where they'd give me the follower upgrades. So I haven't stockpiled enough of them yet to feel comfortable getting up to that 645 mark. Florian, how's your week been?
Pretty good. Just been busy preparing for the holidays, and also trying to get a little bit of raiding done in a while, but that's easier said than done.
Did you do the LFR?
I did the LFR. Unfortunately, that's all I was able to do because my raiding guide decided to fall apart just a few days before raids opened.
Oh, no.
So right now I'm on a hunt for a new one.
I have done the LFR, which was hilarious. I don't know if maybe people were complaining that Pandaria LFR was too hard. But I know that Dragon Soul LFR was really easy, and Highmaul LFR is really, really easy. It took, I think, 15 minutes to get through the first wing. I wish that was an exaggeration, but I don't believe it is. I did pug, though. I pugged a group, and we managed to get Butcher and Kargath down. Tectus, though, that didn't go so well.
Nope.
Other than that, though, I stayed up way too late last night wrapping presents. I think I was up to like 3:30 trying to get Christmas presents wrapped, and that was sleepy. Anything else going on, though, guys?
Well, no, not really. I got back into a pug this afternoon and killed 2 more bosses, Twin Ogron and the Breaker. The last 2 before High Imperator, just to get a little bit of the techniques under my belt so that when we come back with a guild on our raid night, it's a little bit easier for everybody, and I'm looking forward to it. I just realized when we killed Bracken Spore on Friday that he's not actually a mandatory boss. I had been kind of throwing a raid at him wipe after wipe for a couple hours, thinking that he was necessary for progression, but now I realize that we killed him. He's actually harder than the next 2 bosses, so I think we'll have a nice time doing a much bigger clear next week.
Sure. Have you gotten any gear for you yourself yet?
Yeah, on Friday I dropped a bind on equip belt that happened to be Warforged. Really happy about that.
Did you keep it or did you sell it?
No, I kept it.
Okay.
We were running a pug, and we had the if you roll neat on it, you have to equip it rule. So of course fair. I had to adhere to that.
Yeah, that was really common in Cataclysm.
Well, it's really popular to get using the group finder to get into these trash farming groups. If you want to get BOEs, and some of them have need everything, some of them have main spec before greed, And so I guess you can, if you adhere to one loot philosophy over another, you can just find a group that matches that philosophy and everybody's happy.
I'd really rather just kill bosses than farm trash. That sounds so terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very fun, especially because some of those packs can be brutal and you can wind up with a pretty big repair bill.
But we do have a little bit of news this week, so let's go ahead and move into that. Alright, so first order of news this week is, Mythic Highmaul opened, so that meant that the hardest difficulty was available, so the race for World First was on, and it took 5 days for it to be completed. We had a large number of people, actually, that were sitting up there ready to take it. Method, of course, was, for most people, the leading contender. But Paragon actually has brought it back this expansion and is now 7 out of 7 and had the first Imperator Margok kill. They were, however, still missing a Butcher kill, which Method had on them. They cleaned that up, and Paragon is currently sitting on number 1. So, yeah, right on. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, congratulations to them. That's pretty intense. I wonder if they went back on this week where Mythic opened. I wonder if they did a clear on heroic mode just to get their item level up a little bit more, or if they just started throwing themselves at Mythic.
It's hard to say. I mean, I don't know. They might say on their website, but I didn't look into it. I mean, I know that I can't quite conceive how much they might have possibly raided in the last 5 days, considering they had 121 wipes on Butcher and 122 wipes on Margok. That's so many wipes. Like, oh man.
Yeah, that is intense, isn't it? That's just a level of play that we're not familiar with. I can't imagine wiping 100 times on anything. It's like if you decided you were going to get the Vitreous Stone Drake, so you just ran that one dungeon over and over and over again. It's a 0.1% drop rate, 0.3% drop rate. You have to run it maybe 200 or 300 times before you can get it guaranteed. And I can imagine people throwing an entire week into that.
I've ran it a lot.
Yeah, but over and over again, that's repetitive. I can't handle that at all.
I've ran it a lot. That's all I can say. I still haven't got it though. I've been putting most of my mount farming towards the Death Charger, though. Couple interesting points, though, for this Paragon World First downing. One, Paragon we hadn't heard a lot from because they were really big for Wrath of Lich King. Pretty decent. They were around in Cataclysm, but Miss Pandaria, they went with a 10-man group, so they weren't really contending for the 25-man heroic downings of bosses. So they were kind of almost on the back burner, really, and then they just decided to bring it back. Florian, did you follow this at all?
A little bit. I kept an eye on what was going on with the race, but I'm not that well versed in the different raid teams that are vying for World First. I do remember Paragon being a big deal back in the Wrath days, but aside from that, I can't really tell you anything.
Well, the thing that was really curious about this, Method is a good example of the way that they do this is that they will commonly switch things out based on the fight very heavily. I mean, so, Mythic's 20 people, and they will have probably 35 ready to go. It's like, okay, so we want 10 hunters on this fight for reasons X. So they just pull in all the hunters, and then everyone else gets, they pull out whatever else, the mages, or I don't even know. Paragon doesn't follow that pattern in that they have their 20 raiders and they have 2 people on the bench, and then they will do it with their team or they won't. And that's just, I'm happy to see that they were able to do it with the team they had instead of having to adjust everything as Method chooses to do. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just nice to see that, they're like, no, this is our team, these are our characters, we're playing with those. Done.
Yeah, I guess that's actually a pretty good testament to Blizzard balancing encounters so that you're not kind of forced to take one class over another.
Well, there's a lot of predictions that there was going to be lots of hunters and lots of mages. For the most part, range is normally better than melee. people can argue against that, but more often than not, that's what happens. And also with hunters having aspect of the fox, which allows the entire raid to cast while moving, and then mages having amplify magic, which is a raid-wide healing buff. It was just predicted that people would be bringing stacks and stacks of those, and Paragon's lineup is very mixed, which is nice to see. I was also, me personally, I was very stoked to see that on their Imperator Margot kill, that the number 1 DPS was the Shadow Priest. A little bit of guilty pleasure of my own. But no, I would like to see World First take a little bit longer in the future, though. I mean, I know it's hard for Blizzard to put that strain on it, but like, how long did it take for Lich King to go down?
I don't recall. I don't think I followed the raid teams very well during the release of Lich King. I might not have even been playing at that point, actually.
It took a while. I know that they did not get 25-man Heroic Lich King down until the 5% buff came into effect. And I believe it was Paragon that got that world first at 5%. They had the 5% buff, and then they were finally able to down it. Before then, nobody was able to kill him.
Right, and I wonder, it seems like we were talking last week about how long their heroic mode Margot kill took because of the lack of a enrage timer. I was looking more on that fight. He has a number of phases, and the final phase, you can't really stay alive for very long. So I think them taking so long might have just been them drawing out the different phases ahead of time so that they could line up maybe intense cooldowns with phase transitions, that kind of thing. Lich King, I think, had a pretty hard enrage mechanic, but with Defiles, if I'm remembering it correctly, that might have made that fight a little bit more of a gear check. This is more of like an endurance check.
Yeah, the Defile was the dot that kept stacking, right?
I'm talking about the big pools, the big black pools that happened on the floor. Yeah, it's been a while since I did that fight at difficulty, though, so it's hard to talk about that.
Well, and the other thing that about Lich King is that they didn't let you test him. Nobody knew what was going to happen in the fight. I mean, Margok, people got to test them and stuff before this actually opened up and stuff, whereas Lich King was one of the few fights that they ever said, no, you don't get to see it. You get to see it when it comes. Good luck.
So all internal testing with that one?
I guess so. I mean, and that fight is still, a testament to raiding as a whole.
Yeah, that was a really fun time to be alive in the game, so to speak. Another kind of curious observation I want to address is the number of Horde teams versus Alliance teams in the World First race.
You mean how they're pretty much all Horde for at least the World First?
Do you think that's because of racial abilities? It's kind of like the opposite of what's happening right now in PvP, because I'm looking at Paragon's screen cap, and it's not even like they're all Troll or they're all Blood Elf. It's a pretty big mix of Troll, Orc, and Blood Elf, one Goblin.
It really just depends. I mean, because, the Horde's racials are better for PvE, significantly better, and Alliance is very heavily geared right now towards PvP. But honestly, for the most part, Horde racials have always been better for PvE. Between Trolls having a haste buff, and then Orcs having their huge attack power buff, and Blood Elves, the new Blood Elf racial is actually insane. It's ridiculously good.
What is it now?
I don't remember the specifics on it. All I remember is that it's good. I can check real quick. All I remember, though, is that it's really good.
Resource regeneration with the Arcane Torrent, or is it some kind of DPS buff now?
Because it was very meh, and now it's very good. I don't know. I don't remember the specifics on it. I remember that because it used to just be like the AoE silence, and it would give you 2% mana back. I believe now they've changed it to where it'll give you resources back regardless of your class. Like Death Knights, it'll give you runic power.
Correct. That is the case. I'm looking at it right now. It restores 3% of your mana, 15 energy, 15 rage, 15 focus for hunters, 1 holy power, 1 chi, 20 runic power for Death Knights.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, that's ridiculous. And it's on, and they'll also lower the cooldown. It's on a minute and a half now.
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay, so it didn't get lowered then. Either way, it's really good. And And then trolls have their berserk and orcs. Taurens aren't so great because it's just the thunder stomp still.
Well, they have the stamina buff now, which explains why both of Paragon's tanks are Tauren.
Yeah, it's about min-maxing your stats as much as you can. They're just better for raiding. And, I mean, really, as a whole, they always have been. I mean, in vanilla, the best raiding guilds were always Horde because the Alliance didn't get Heroism until Burning Crusade. So, I mean, Horde was always doing better because they had Bloodlust. Yeah,
let's see. I don't know. The Paladins bring anything that good as far as raid-wide utility to the table in vanilla WoW? I'm thinking...
Paladins were buff bots.
Yeah, well, I mean, so were Shamans kind of with their totems and everything, but Paladins had, like, the Blessing of Protection. That's not terribly useful. I don't know.
There's a lot of things that go into raiding that we probably don't even realize. I mean, I've done heroic raiding, but I don't crunch numbers like these people do.
True.
Taking the next step, though. There was a huge controversy that came out recently. There was a few Blizzard devs that went on to the Convert to Raid podcast. If you're not listening to them, I advise you to. Thank you for listening to us. They're very good as well. So a little mini shout out for them. They went on to there and they were answering a bunch of questions from the guys, and they said that the Everburning Candle, which is a 665 trinket that gives you a huge block of int and use to give you a bunch of mana back, was not going to be nerfed, and people thought that, it would, people thought it was going to be nerfed because it was really good with the amount of mana it gave back. It gave back like 20k. And they're like, no, we understand that that's really powerful, but we're just going to leave it how it is. Especially because there's people that have already spent a bunch of money on it because it is so good. It was like 20 hours later, it got nerfed by like 50%.
Right. The item's stat budget was not affected, and they did say, I think almost verbatim, that they know that the stats were a little bit over budget, but they weren't about to decrease those. However, the on-use was halved. The 20,000 mana or something was reduced to 10,000.
Right. And this upset a lot of people, understandably so, because, I mean, they just got told, we're not going to nerf it. So a whole bunch of people went, oh, sweet, they're not going to nerf it. I went and bought it. I didn't have the money. They went and bought it, and then barely a day later, it got nerfed. It's still good. It's not as good as it was, but this is very upsetting to a lot of people. And the questions that's raised here, I mean, because there's a lot of things that could be here. I mean, obviously, the two developers that were on the podcast don't always have the final say on everything. There's so many different teams working in so many different areas that, I imagine communication for things like this are difficult. The question that I wanted to raise is that, like, we have two different sides of Blizzard. We have the Blizzard from 5+ years ago that never told us anything ever. They were on, like, pure always radio silence. And there's the other half, is that the half that we have now, where they are constantly talking to us all the time. We get personal one-on-ones with the developers. We can tweet them. They'll tweet back, answer questions all the time. But we run into this issue of contradictions and conflictions with what they said and what happens. What do you guys think on this? Like, just as what we have currently, situations like this, what are your first opinions?
Well, in an issue like this, you can't always... How should I put that? When you're trying to balance a game as big and complex as World of Warcraft, or really any game for that matter, things are constantly going to be changing. You might say one day, we're going to nerf this or not nerf this, and then 30 minutes later, you find out a way that item can be used in an exploitative way in combination with something else, which I think might have been what happened here. The thing is, I don't think you can take any statement, we will not do this or we will do this at face value, because it can immediately change as soon as someone discovers something new. And when you've got a game with as many systems as World of Warcraft that's that complex, then at any second something new can appear that's going to require you to completely change what you intended to do. So while I'm sure they didn't intend to nerf it, and when they said that, the thing is, something new could have come up. The fact is, as open as Blizzard is, we don't see everything that they see, and we don't know everything they know about what's going on in the game. So there could very well have been any number of things that made them go back and say, I know we weren't, but we have to immediately because of this. Just because they're more transparent doesn't mean they're 100% transparent. And a lot of people are getting upset when there's probably very good reasons why they did what they did.
Right. And, like, there have been things as Blizzard. At some point, Blizzard has done something that has probably upset one of us across the years. I mean, I don't believe, with the way that Warcraft has changed and all that kind of stuff, Blizzard does things at some point that are going to upset you. For instance, something that very much just made me sad is that Shaman's Ghost Wolf, they got a glyph that allowed them to run at mount speed all the time, indoors, outdoors, etc. And they did a hot fix to where it doesn't work indoors, which is very upsetting to me. And it's also really rude because if you're outside and run inside, you retain the speed, but if you drop out of Ghost Wolf and go back into it, then you lose the speed. So it's really rude. And you can run into an instance with the speed and still retain it. So it feels very wonky, and I don't fully understand the reason for it. But that was upsetting to me, but it's, there's probably a reason behind it. Everyone was going, well, why would you do this? And, with Everburning Candle, you just said you wouldn't. Why would you do this? They probably have, like you said, data that says, no, we have to change it for reasons X. They don't have the time, really, to always tell us the reason for every single change. So it sucks, but it's just part of the game evolving. I do worry, though, that this particular situation might make Blizzard back up a little bit on answering questions. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit embarrassing, I guess. I'm not entirely sure who made the comment itself, but it seemed like the next day going to the office, somebody comes up and says, hey, we just got this new data, we need to change the trinket, and them kind of doing the facepalm. That's a little bit embarrassing. I'd be embarrassed. And I'm not entirely sure what their stance is internally about what you're allowed to say to the press or in public statements, or what you're allowed to say on the record in order to avoid situations like this. I don't think it will really change their official policy. I think they might be more cautious about saying certain kinds of things in the future, and that might be it. But I don't think we're going to hear any less from them. I just think when it comes to the types of information they're revealing, they might be a little bit more guarded.
Well, and some things are just full lockdown with Blizzard. They won't talk about it at all. So it's just really hit or miss on what they're actually going to talk to you about and what they say and all that kind of different stuff. I mean, sometimes they'll talk to you about something, but you'll get this entirely vague, off-the-wall answer that doesn't really help you at all. It's just them answering the question so that, they're being politicians.
Right, like the toy or no toy dartboard.
Yeah. And, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that one. I mean, while that was a very fun answer, I mean, the full answer probably would have been much larger. I mean, and we know some of the rules for what's a toy and what's a not. If it teleports you, it's not a toy. If it gives you any type of combat benefit, it's not a toy. And they probably could have just said that, and plenty of people would have accepted that answer. But, I mean, that's that information was already out there. So, I mean, more fun answers are more fun for everybody.
Right, but then again, I think if they give us an official answer on something like that, then it allows everybody to kind of hold them to that whenever they invent a new toy for the rest of time until they correct that statement, I think they're trying to avoid situations like that. They said, you told us the exact criteria for what becomes a toy, and this isn't, what's the big deal, this and that. I think they're just trying to, just cover themselves a little bit, give themselves a little bit of room to make decisions without having so much public outcry. I can't imagine dealing with the amount of commentary that comes from the fan base here.
Well, and it depends on where you're at. I mean, like, the WoW forums are ugly places, but then, like, the Reddit, for the most part, is pretty friendly, and then the Twitter is a very large mix of, why, thank you, I hate you. So it just depends on the medium of which they're communicating and which one they're looking at. I mean, because some of them are very angry and some of them are very civilized. It just depends on the people of where you're actually looking at them for.
Right. And I try not to take any of these changes too personally or too much gloom and doom, because I know that there are a lot of people over at Blizzard HQ who are making these changes, and they're doing it to make the game better, and I trust their judgment. So even if I had bought the trinket, I wouldn't feel too badly. I take it all in stride. I know they're trying to make a good game, and I think they've succeeded, so I trust their judgment.
I just really hope they keep talking to us. I enjoy the feedback a lot.
Absolutely.
One last thing in the news is I wanted to remind everyone about our December giveaway, our holiday giveaway, which is the new mount that went on sale. Not mount, the new pet that went on sale, the cute little baby goat Argi. We will be giving a number of these away based on the number of entries we get. You can get entries based on following us on Twitter, retweeting the contest tweet on Twitter, following us on Facebook, sharing the contest Facebook post on Facebook, leaving us an iTunes review. It doesn't have to be 5 stars. If you think we suck, let us know why we suck so that we can try and fix it. You can also answer the weekly question that is going to be on the show. Last week's question is on episode number 4. Episode number 5 question is, which Horde exclusive mount was added in patch 3.2 to counterbalance the Winter-Spring Frost Saber? So you can send that answer to us via email at thecastbar@gmail.com. If you need to send it via something else, we prefer that you keep it in a private medium, so like a Facebook message or something like that, just something where it's not posted everywhere, so that the people that do know the answer actually get the credit for it. Other than that, all of the contest rules are on our Facebook. So let's move right now into the closer look. Welcome everybody to A Closer Look. A Closer Look is a small section that we do of where we take a feature or something that's going on in the World of Warcraft and we break it down a little bit closer. We zoom in, if you will, and just, really get down to a little bit more than just the top, the headline, the anything. It could be a feature, it could be just whatever it ends up being that we think we can put a little bit more insight into. And this week we wanted to go into a little bit of the changes that have been made across World of Warcraft that have really helped the community as a whole. Warcraft used to be a very difficult game to get into, and the game as of now has become much more friendly to new players, and they've put in a lot of ways to bring players together. And we just wanted to go over that because there are some things that people see as negative, myself included, of why I don't like some of the features, but I also see why they are included and why they're great. So, Evan, if you want to lead us into this.
Well, yeah, I think there are a couple of features that have been installed since the classic WoW era that have increased accessibility, especially for new players. One of the biggest changes I think that impacts the quality of life of new players was the introduction of the looking for group system. And whereas previously you had to spam in trade chat or general chat and go to the big city hubs to say that you wanted to do this or that dungeon, and then assemble your group that way, is a lot of searching for the roles you needed in the who list. Dungeons took many hours to complete. You had to run all the way there. Nowadays, you can just queue right up. You reach level 15, you get to select a tank role or a healer role or DPS role, and the groups are match made for you. It's a huge quality of life improvement, I think. And Blizzard, looking for group system, I remember back in Classic WoW, they introduced the meeting stones. I think at one point, Florian might be able to help me out with this. They interacted with the innkeepers nearby to where the dungeons were. I remember being in Westfall as an Alliance character trying to queue up for Deadmine. You had to go to the Sentinel Hill innkeeper to access some kind of list to form a group on your own server, or to activate the meeting stone to summon other players to you. At one point, the meeting stone was like a queue system. You went and clicked on the meeting stone to put you in the list. Those didn't really work out. They were kind of clunky. Eventually, they had a looking for group interface that was introduced, I think, with the Burning Crusade, where you could just put yourself on a list. This is the dungeon I want to run, and then you can just use that list to form a group on your own, manually, of course. And then they introduced the looking for group system, I believe, in Wrath of the Lich King, yeah, which is just streamlined, and it makes it very easy. It comes with its own set of kind of evils, what with random grouping, but I think on the whole, it just gets people into those dungeons. It gets people to see that content. It takes out a whole lot of the headache and maintains a lot of the reward, I think. It certainly isn't the same as it used to be, but I think it's a step in the right direction as far as increasing availability of those things for the player base at large.
Well, no, it's great. I mean, because like the thing about this was one of the first steps that they took that allowed us to this was one of the first steps towards anything being done across realms. At the time, there were not bind on account items. Well, I believe the heirlooms started in. Wait, no, they started in Cataclysm, didn't they? I don't remember exactly. No, they started in Wrath, yeah, because they had the PvP ones. But besides that, there was nothing that you could do across realms. I mean, we didn't have the technology that we have now of where you can invite someone on battle tag and, they'll pull you into their realm and you guys can go do stuff together. If you were on a different realm, you were on a different realm. You could not do anything with anybody. And this led to people having tons of characters across tons of realms, and it was, a hindrance, especially if you had a character that you enjoyed a lot, because if you, went to a new college class or who knows, and you met someone and they're like, yeah, I play WoW, and you're like, awesome! And then you have to ask that question of, what server are you on? And you just know that it's not going to be yours, and then you guys can't actually play together.
Correct. Yeah, I don't think I've ever met in 10 years of playing a single person that's ever been on my server. That used to be a really disappointed thing about finding people out in the real world who played Warcraft as well. It's just very kind of bittersweet. Yeah. Because there were several servers. I mean, there were maybe 100 of them, right? Back in Burning Crusade, Lich King at the peak of WoW subscription.
A lot. That's all I know. There was a lot. I actually remember when I was leveling a tune, and we were in the Scarlet Monastery, and I met someone, and I was like, this person's really awesome. I'd like to play with this person some more. And they're like, I'm sorry, we're on a different server. It's like, how are we playing now? And that's when I first got introduced to the concept of how looking for dungeon worked. And it made me very sad, because that person was very entertaining and fun. Luckily now we do have ways to remedy that, such as the battle tag system that I was talking about earlier. It used to be that you were able to add people via email, but it didn't really do much besides allow you to communicate with them. Now you're able to invite people and do stuff with them regardless of realm or anything like that. And this is just improved on meeting somebody and they're going, oh, I'm on Lightbringer, sorry. It's like, no, that's perfectly fine. We can do everything now. The only thing that you can't do across realms anymore is trade.
Right, and that can be a little bit of a pain, but fortunately when they introduced the cross-realm looking for group, they also introduced this feature where if everybody in the group is eligible to win a loot item, you can trade that for 2 hours. I think that was a really good balance because, things happen, people pick up stuff accidentally, people get given loot through Master Looter by mistake. I can't imagine being in a cross-realm group and accidentally assigning a piece of gear to the wrong person, wrong class, wrong everything, and not having a way to remedy that.
Well, the only time that this upsets me, and it's not so much of a big deal now because you don't necessarily have to have the old materials to level up your professions anymore. You can do it all through Warlord's equipment. Mm-hmm. But I remember I was trying to level up my blacksmithing, and I was taking my miner and flying around Fellwood to get a whole bunch of mithril. And there was this worgen that was flying around, also competing with me for mithril. And he messaged me, and he's like, hey, what are you mining for? And I was like, I need the mithril ore for blacksmithing. He's like, cool, I need the solid stone for whatever he said. And he didn't want the mithril at all. I wanted the mithril, he wanted the stone. And we're like, you want to just, any stone I get's yours, any mithril you get's mine? That sounds great. Awesome. That way we can, just cover more ground and get everything that we want, and then, just get the resource we want. Except, guess what? Cross Realm Zone, different server, couldn't trade in.
Right. Yeah, that is a little bit of a pain, especially if you're trying to do a looking group or use a group finder to assemble a cross-realm raid for normal or heroic Highmaul, for example, and you want to give everybody a flask or you want to give everybody a potion. You can't do it. At least you can put down feasts, and at least you can trade health stones, but you can't give somebody a flask to help them out, even if your bags are overflowing with them. Not like I know some people really like being helpful in that way.
Right, and that's one of the things that I find to be very upsetting about this is that I understand that they have this restriction so that people can't just freely send gold across servers and stuff like that, but it also hinders the friendly nature of the community because, especially now with the changes where I can just make things out of my bank, it'd be super easy for me in even an LFR or whatever to go, someone goes, man, I just ran out of int flask, and I can just go, there you go, I just made you one. But I can't give it to them because they're, from Kel'Thuzad.
At any rate, I think we might be nitpicking a little bit the bad parts of this.
Fair
On
enough.
the whole, though, this is a giant change, and it really changed the landscape of public grouping in Warcraft, I think, for the better.
No, it's true. And then they moved on from that and made LFR, which is just looking for dungeon for raids, which this is a beautiful addition. I know a lot of people don't like it, but raids, after you hit the maximum level, for the most part, raids is what's left. That's what continues the story. This is where the lore goes. This is where Blizzard's time goes. And there's a whole bunch of people that weren't able to see it. It was a problem, especially in like Vanilla and the Burning Crusade, where guilds, there's lots of people that were able to raid like Karazhan, but nothing after that. You might get the occasional group that would do like Magtheridon's Lair or Gruul's Lair, but things like Serpent Shrine Cavern, Black Temple, I think it was like 0.5% of the community got to see Sunwell. And
a ridiculously small percentage.
Yeah, and that's sad. I mean, because seeing this game, you want to see the game. Blizzard, goes, patch 3.3, Black Temple, oh man, and nobody actually gets to see it because they're like, I either can't raid, I'm not good enough to raid, I don't have the gear to raid, I don't have the time. There's, who knows? There's tons and tons of reasons why people might not be able to raid. And then they added LFR, and it goes, you got an hour? Queue up for this LFR, go do, the first 3 bosses, you can do the next 3 whenever you get around to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and this... Go ahead.
How do you like the difficulty they've tuned the LFR of this first dungeon?
Well, there's 2 sides to it. It's really easy. It's really, really easy. It goes really, really fast. And I think it should... they initially said that they wanted LFR to be like a tourist mode so that people could see this content and all that kind of different stuff. But the thing that I was noticing, there was a lot of people that felt they were being griefed by having to do LFR, especially during 5.4 with Siege of Orgrimmar. The thing is that LFR for Siege of Orgrimmar and Throne of Thunder, they were a little bit higher difficulty. I mean, it was still really easy compared to the other difficulty levels, but I mean, there was still the chance to die, chance to wipe in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was easy enough that you could get through it if something bad happened. And what I was noticing, at least me personally, is that it was almost training the community to raid. We have so many people raiding Highmaul right now, and not just LFR. I mean, there's so many people that are doing Highmaul. I mean, normal isn't by any means difficult, but it's more difficult than what people are used to, and it used to be that things like that, people wouldn't be able to walk in. People just, it's like, you don't have raiding experience. Sorry, you're not going to be able to comprehend how this works. And I feel like the difficulty from Throne of Thunder and Siege of Orgrimmar really, really did help teach these people just like the general concept of how raiding works. And we've seen at least from what I'm observing, such a high success rate from new guild groups, pickup groups, stuff like that. It used to be you would never pug anything ever because it just meant that you were just going to die. But now pugs can be very, very successful. And it's a very beautiful thing to see because we have so much happening. And they got this clue of how to do this, and then the people that have done it long enough see that, I'm not surrounded by morons. They just need a little bit of direction, and they can be perfectly effective.
I think that the heroic dungeon tuning has helped a whole lot in preparing people for raiding. I think the looking for raid is not, and should not be the training mode for the raid dungeons, because honestly, I think the looking for raid is a kind of almost requirement in Mr. Pandaria was almost like a chore. I hated doing it, and I leveled up quite a few alts and really didn't like looking forward to doing the raids through the raid finder. Having the option to jump right into normal, what used to be flex, after heroic dungeons means you're going to be grouping with people who are serious about it, and the waits, I think, a little bit shorter using the group finder compared to the actual looking for raid tool to get that same kind of entry level gear. As an alternative to gearing up a new character, I like normal raiding after heroic dungeons a lot more than I like looking for raid as like a step in progression.
I understand, and I definitely agree. And I think that might have been derived from the item level difference. And now they've told us that they're considering making a very drastic difference in item level between the tiers of raiding. So whatever we're in tier 17, whatever tier 18, they've been talking about making that item level significantly higher than tier 17, which I think is almost a bad idea, because we kind of had that at the end of Mists Pandaria. And, Timeless Isle was their catch-up mechanic, but the problem is that catch-up mechanic, it didn't really get you ready for Siege of Orgrimmar. You still had to do LFR in order to get enough gear to do flex.
Exactly.
And right now we're at the beginning of the expansion, so we have that little bit of leeway between heroic dungeons are enough to get you into normal. I don't know if we'll still have that option come tier 18, which worries me.
It would be kind of cool. Oh, actually, I'm not entirely sure I want to call it cool, but when we have the, what's it called, the Black Ball Foundry, the next raid dungeon that we're going to have to fight at?
Yeah, Blackrock Foundry.
If that item level for Blackrock Foundry is significantly increased, such that you would need to do the Blackrock Foundry looking for raid in order to catch up on a new character without having to go all the way through Highmaul, and that would be a little bit disappointing. That would be more like Mr. Pandaria. I would like to see more attention, or I would like to see Blackrock Foundry come as a kind of sequel to Highmaul itself, such that if I have a new character, I should be able to go through heroic dungeons and then go through normal mode in Highmaul to gear up myself to prepare for Blackrock Foundry, and I don't have to suffer necessarily through looking for raid with very few alternative options to get my raid or my item level up. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you don't have to worry about that, because we already have the item levels and the item level requirements for Blackrock Foundry. It's not that much higher than Highmaul. Not very much higher at all, because that's still tier 17. That's still the item level and tier set that we're working with. Because Highmaul doesn't drop tier, by the way. It drops tier lookalike, but it's not tier. It won't give you bonuses. All of that stuff, it comes from Blackrock. It's what comes after Blackrock that is concerning. And where that's going to go. Because that could be a very significant difference. Because the LFR requirement for Blackrock is going to be 635, which is a little bit higher than you can achieve with heroic dungeons. But it shouldn't be too hard to get to, especially with the crafted gear. And then right now how easy it is to get in Highmaul. The question is, that's only to get an LFR. What kind of break are we going to see in order to do normal Blackrock Foundry? But that's going to be something we'll just have to see when it comes. The last point of that has really helped the community along in terms of just really bringing everyone together and enabling everyone to do stuff together. It received a lot of heat, but it's the character boosts. There's such a huge wall involved with bringing a new player into the game before these character boosts, because they want to play with the person that got them into the game. If someone goes, dude, you should play this, you'd like it, it's awesome, it's wonderful, they're like, awesome, I'll come play with you. I like to play games with people. WoW, it's a social game. MMOs, for the most part, are meant to be played with other people. And then they get in and they have to start at level 1 and they have to spend the next, 2 weeks, month, whatever, to get up to level 80, 85, 90, wherever it is that you are currently at, so they can play with you. And in that time, you are getting farther ahead of them. You're, a lot of times you'll be like, I'll just level with you. That way we can play together. But you've already leveled so many times, or, you have to go raid, but they still want to play, and you run into this wall. And
yeah, I do like... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Florian, what do you feel about the level ups or the character boost after playing since Burning Crusade?
I think it's awesome, really, especially with WoW's game design, because WoW is very much designed to be heavy on endgame content. Blizzard focuses most of their efforts on endgame. Most of their content is raiding content or endgame gameplay content, as opposed to adding new leveling content. So it's a really good thing for new players because they get in, they want to, it's exactly like Michael said, you want to play with your friends. Your friends are all max level, and you can't play with them without having to go through this massive grind first. A lot of people quit before that. I remember I saw some statistics several years ago where the vast majority of World of Warcraft subscribers, not consistent subscribers, but just out of all the people who've ever subscribed, didn't have a single max level character. Because there was this huge wall to getting to what is some of the best content in the game. And the character boost really helps to alleviate this problem. However, there's always the downside that you're going to have players coming into raids and endgame heroics who really have very little idea how to play their class. And that's mostly because of the lack of difficulty. Even when you get near endgame, the questing in Draenor is very easy. The Draenor dungeons aren't too terribly difficult, so it can be very easy to end up at max level now and not have any understanding of even the basic class mechanics. So it's kind of it's got its advantages and drawbacks because it does let new players come in and play with everyone else and do the stuff they want to do. But you've got thing into heroic raids, and their skill level really isn't ready for that.
Well, and it just depends on what's bringing you into the game. I mean, because if someone else is bringing you into the game, hopefully they're there to help you. So even if, you're like, well, I didn't get the essentially the tutorial. I know there's a little bit of a tutorial when you boost a new character now where it feeds you your abilities like the Death Knight starting zone, but it's not exactly a tutorial. I mean, but hopefully if someone's bringing you into the game, they are aware enough of the game to really help you get on there. And then with the ability prune and all of the different things like that, I mean, people are like, oh god, they're making WoW so simple. They're simplifying the game. But it's also making it much more friendly for a new person to not have to learn this complicated, time-based, 9-button rotation, and instead going, okay, you have these 4 abilities. This is the one you use a lot. Use this one whenever you can, and whenever this one lights up, press it. Okay, go. There's always a skill cap that you can do to increase this based on talents or, there's plenty of ways that you can shine as being a better player than someone else, regardless of how simple the rotation is, because there's a certain level that you can attain. And this could be as simple as saving your cooldown for waiting for your trinket to proc. There's so many people that don't do that because it's just, that's not something that everyone watches for. They see, I need to hit this button. When this one lights up, I'll press it. And for the most part, that's enough. Even in LFR, that can be enough. You have to learn, fire bad, don't stand. But it's just, if you can help them just get this basic comprehension, then it shouldn't be too bad. And I think that the character boost is something that Blizzard really wanted to do, and they'll get. I would imagine with the next expansion, this character boost will probably be upgraded to level 100. I think. I would imagine so. I'd be surprised if it doesn't. Discussion for another time. But I think they'll make stuff like that better as time goes on.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the Proving Grounds. I want to see if they ever kind of update it for the current expansion, because it still takes place in Pandaria, But I think it's been a good compromise with the level 90 boosting and having that as a requirement for heroic dungeons. I haven't really been unsatisfied with anybody in a heroic dungeon or in a raid if they have that silver proving grounds at least. And looking on our WoW and Reddit, I'm looking at a bunch of people who are struggling with the silver proving grounds on certain classes and everything, which I think is a good sign. I think we want to see a little bit of challenge. I think we want to see people going to the forums, asking for advice and help, and increasing that community feel, and getting a little bit of other players' opinions so that everybody can then kind of improve a little bit. And I think that was what Blizzard's goal was, and I think that's actually paying off.
Well, and we've had so many huge changes to what we're able to do as a community with who we're able to do it with in just the last year and a half. I mean, there's just been such a huge advancement in the technology that allows us to be a community regardless of where we are. There's still the restriction of, oceanic realms and American realms and all that kind of different stuff, but I believe Blizzard will get there eventually so that we can all, be together in happiness.
One big happy family, one big happy cross-realm family.
But it comes down to, we love this game, you love this game, at least I hope you do. I'm not sure why you're listening to a podcast about this game if you hate it. Be patient with those around you, and most of the time, just give them a little push. I don't mean push them off a cliff, I mean push them in the right direction. You can help them, and if you help them, they can help someone else, and so on and so forth, and then that game becomes even the smallest little bit better. Blizzard is improving the ways that we're able to help and just hang out with one another, so now that we have as many people around us as we do, it's time to actually, allow them to grow and prosper, because at one point, we were all level 1 noobs that did not understand that you, as a mage, do not need to actually hit things with your stick.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, maybe some of you realize you just cast a spell instead of hitting them with a stick, but you understand where I'm at.
Oh, yeah.
We were all there. The only difference is now, those people that need to learn, some things are now at, your level 90s, your level 100s, because we did get the option to move forward, and so let's move forward as a group. But we do have a piece of mail, so let's go ahead and move into the mailbag. Come on. Alright, you can send your questions or feedback to our email at thecastbar@gmail.com. Send us a tweet at Castbar Podcast, or you can call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. We only have one piece of mail this week. It came to us on Facebook from a Ruben E. What do you guys believe the next race in Warcraft will be, and will we be able to get it in the next expansion? Florian, go ahead and take us into this.
This is a difficult question. It's very, very hard to give any kind of opinions or predictions on this, because if you'd asked me 4 years ago if Pandaren were ever going to be in World of Warcraft, I would laugh at you. But I think we'll definitely we'll most likely get something in the next expansion. So far, Blizzard has made it a point to add at least a new race or class in every expansion, and this is the first expansion where we haven't had either a new race or a new class available to us. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get something next go-round. Well, as for what race that'll be, I think it'll most likely tie into whatever the theme of the expansion is. I'm hopeful for ogres, since there's already been a lot of work done as far as getting ogres available to play. For example, there is a female ogre model, believe it or not, even though almost no one has seen it. And I don't think it's actually present anywhere in the live game. But, ogres, it could be.
Ogres are essentially done. They were originally going to be the Horde's Cataclysm race, and then for untold reasons, they were replaced by goblins.
Yeah, so I could very easily see ogres becoming a new Horde race. But then the only question becomes, what do you give the Alliance to balance that out? because there are far fewer races than Azeroth that really seem like they would be alliance appropriate than horde appropriate, especially since a lot of these races are sort of beastly races, animalistic races, and that's not really the alliance's thing.
Well, and there's been such a huge, so the thing is like, with the ogres, for instance, like you were talking about, the thing is that, like, I feel as though if we were going to get the ogre race, we would have got it this expansion, because there's so many ogres here. And there's the ogre continent, which reportedly we're not going to get to see this expansion according to Blizzard, but they do have plans to do something with it, which kind of confuses me. But I feel as though that, I mean, because there's so many people, like, when they're talking about the next race, they wanted to see Alliance get Jinyu and the Horde get Hosen, the fish and the monkeys from this Pandaria. Which, my opinion, no, never, please. I don't want either of them for either race, either faction, ever. I don't like either of them. But I could not see that happening since we were done with them. I don't ever see them adding a race as we're leaving the expansion race. It's more like we're coming into it, is how way it's almost always been. I feel that on a lore perspective and a bunch of just, it feels like a weird scratch to me to think of that we're getting a race because the expansion's over.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I can understand. That's understandable. Go ahead, Evan.
I'm thinking we've talked previously about how we think that the next expansion might be the South Seas, the Lost Isles.
I hope so.
Eye of Eshara, maybe it would be possible to see High Elves or Highborn as a separate race from Night Elves for the Alliance.
Well, the only thing on that is, like, there's already not that large of a difference between Night Elves and Blood Elves, and Blood Elves are technically High Elves that just, fell to their arcane desires. And, there are some High Elves that are still living at Darnassus, but there's very, very few of them, and they're not really liked by anybody. In fact, there's plenty of people trying to kill them, and it's just very, like, as a new race, that feels very cheap to me.
Yeah, it'd be like you're not really getting anything that's very different, like we've got with the Worgen, like we got with Pandaren.
Right, and, like, one last thing on the Ogre is that, like, I could maybe see it as, like, on the end of the expansion, we're liberating them, and then we get to bring them as a race, but I still don't like it. I'd rather see us, get something new from somewhere else. If the new expansion is the South Seas, I would like to see the Naga. Because Naga are awesome, and there's plenty of ways to customize them in tons of ways.
But what would a pair of shoes look like on a Naga, for God's sake?
Well, look at a pair of shoes on Tauren, Troll, or Draenei. A lot of times they either don't get them, they become weird little foot wraps. I mean,
It'll be a little tail bracelet.
Yeah, give them a tail bracelet, a tail wrap. There's plenty of ways that you can make that work. If you can make it work for these goat legs and these hooves and these giant paws that are on Tauren, you can make it work for a Naga. The other issue that people raised with Naga, though, is mounts. All of the races currently are bipedal, and so they just, they can always put relatively the same skeleton onto a mount, whereas you wouldn't really be able to make that work with a Naga because you got a tail. The thing that I always saw is, I'm sorry to all of the Naga when I say this, but you're basically riding this like you're a very rich British woman. You just
side saddle.
Yeah, side saddle, exactly. And that would work just fine. I don't care if you don't like it. I mean, let's be honest, Tauren on a lot of mounts looks silly.
I don't know about that. I think side saddles is a little bit too absurd to even consider as a possibility. Right.
And then, like, a race that I would really like to see besides the Naga, which, again, there is no way that I see this happening, not lore-wise or anything like that, but in the Spires of Iraq, you get to play as an Arakoa. You get to play as the Talon King before they become all broken and sketties, and that felt awesome. The ones that can fly and stuff, those guys look amazing, and I would love to play as one. The actual Arakoa, not the sketties.
Right.
Those guys are super cool. They're always bad guys, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But they're cool.
And then another new race with warlords that I've got as a garrison follower is a Saberon. If that's the name of their race. Those little cat people, exactly, from Spires of Arak. There was a quest where you go into a cave and save one of the Saberon.
And there's actually
he's
two of them you can get, because you save one in Nagrand as well.
Oh, is that right? Oh, yeah, I do remember seeing that on the little follower list, but they wear armor. I think the one I've got has the Wildheart Spalders or something, or some kind of druid.
The Orage, the shaman bodyguard.
He's a shaman, actually. He looks great in the armor. I think they've done that model skeleton really well, and I could see him. I could see it not being too strenuous to put all of the player armor models onto that model right there.
Well, the only problem that I have with a Saberon becoming a race, this is the only thing that I could ever see it not happening. One is the whole lore-wise, how is this working? You know, we're technically not supposed to allow things from Draenor into Azeroth, etc. And then the other thing that I see is that Druids have a level 100 talent, I believe, that allows them to become a Saberon for a duration of time.
Right, so I think that probably kind of precludes them ever being a playable race, just because that'd be a little weird.
Right, and that's where I felt on that. I was like, they would either have to remove that talent, but I mean, it would seem very odd for you know, I can be a Saberon, and if you could be a Saberon Druid and your level 100 talent is a Saberon becomes a Saberon, we've just lost all, like, what's even happening.
Yeah, but I do remember Blizzard talking about that Saberon talent and it being like a last minute kind of I don't know what to do. This seems like the best thing we can do with the amount of time we have left as far as development time for the expansion. Let's just do this. It makes sense. It's easy to balance. Done, you know, and they kind of just popped it in there. So I can't rule out them going back on that, taking that talent out, putting something else in its place that's a little bit more well thought out and more interesting to use, and then opening that up as a playable race. It would just, like you said, be weird that if their starting zone was in the alternate dimension Draenor and they have to go through the first 10 levels and do a little bit of a story and then go through a portal to go to a different dimension where they actually join everybody else, kind of akin to the Pandaren on the turtle.
Right. And that whole thing feels super awkward with the Pandaren turtle. I mean, it makes sense, but you get there and you're like, okay. What were you about to say, Florian?
Well, another thing with the Saberon is that I don't think they're terribly likely to become a race in the near future, simply because they are thematically similar to things like the Worgen, for example.
Sure.
And I think if we got a new race, it would probably be more different. Like, for example, the Ogres, you know, we have nothing that's very similar to an Ogre in either the Horde or the Alliance. Or another one that I could see coming in terms of being different is the Botani, or Botani, or however you pronounce it.
Oh, right.
The guys who hang around in Gorgorond and plant everything. Those guys are pretty awesome looking, and I would not mind having them, because we have nothing even close to a plant race. The Alliance, and in fact, I think that might be completely unprecedented in the WoW period.
Right. No, I like the idea of having like a kind of plant-based humanoid. It would be certainly a turn from the humanoid, human elf or beastkin kind of races that we have so far. A plant-based playable character race would be pretty interesting. The only thing I see getting in the way of that is the Botani have like a really kind of complicated texture to their skin and everything, and they have really big kind of heads. I can't imagine putting armor on top of that. It seems like they're already fully visually interesting with just their native look without throwing armor on. Unless it was, if you compare like the playable race Draenei to the broken Draenei that were the mobs in the world before they announced the Burning Crusade races. I mean, I can imagine a playable Botani being a little bit different from the ones we actually see.
Well, and it's always difficult with the monster races. I mean, Worgen, since they came out, have had problems with helmets forever. Whether it's their ears being in weird places, Blood Elves have their eyebrows constantly on the outside of helmets. So there's just a lot of weird things that can happen with that, like you were talking about with having the Botany as a race and armor going with them. And then we run into the same issue that we had with all the others of they they're not new if you bring them into the next expansion. There's nothing, they're still a race from the last expansion. I mean, while technically Pandaren are, from Warcraft 3, was there even one that you could talk to besides, like, Chen? Did we even see Chen before he came in Pandaria? Like, pandas were super, super rare. Now they're everywhere. I mean, and before that, I mean, the Draenei and the Blood Elves, I mean, Worgen were hardly even a thing. Goblins, sure, they were everywhere. So that one made a little more sense. But, like, Draenei and Blood Elves, you didn't really see them ever. I mean, every time that they've introduced a new race, it's been new. Whereas Botany, Arakoa, Ogres, all of these things that we've talked about are already established. I mean, and you can make the same argument for my Naga suggestion. I would still really love to see that. That is my vote, is Naga. But, I mean, technically they're everywhere already, so they're not really new, but it would be very, very new, and that is a definite monster race. The other thing that I see is that with the new expansion, we have already been told we will get new race class combinations. Reportedly, one of them being a gnome hunter, so you can all be quiet. Since they're the only class that can't be a hunter currently. I guess because most things would want to eat them. The other thing that I could see is that there's been a large number of requests for these sub-races. So, being able to be a Zandalari troll, or be able to be a Dark Iron Dwarf, or being able to be the Mag-Ar Orcs, or stuff like that. These seem like they could be a lot easier changes and would be an option for a quote-unquote new race. I think Blizzard is starting to see, though, that, especially with the feedback from this expansion, even if it's overpowered, such as Death Knights when they came out, or Monks when they came out, we like getting new races and classes. We like new ones. I mean, and especially now with the character boost, I mean, I can't imagine, especially in games like League and Heroes and stuff, a new champion comes out and profits go through the roof because everyone just goes, yeah, I'll give you $10 for that. And now if you release, a Blood Mage class that is, a High Elf as the race and they can be a Blood Mage, I mean, I just see the amount of money coming in from people going, I immediately want one of those and I want to level it up and I want to raid with it right now. Just being like, ka-ching!
Yeah, but they also have to think about long-term sustainability because they can't just keep adding one every other expansion, especially if they're going to go to a shorter expansion release cycle. They're going to be swimming in balance changes and balance difficulties, especially when it comes to PvP.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I mean, we're not them. I'm sure they have a plan already of what they want to add when, but I know that character-wise, I love all of my characters, and I get a very, very large amount of enjoyment from the different playstyles between the different classes and the different appearance of races. And even if they keep releasing new content, that sort of stuff will become not as gratifying to me if I don't get the option to play something new, because eventually these classes will become stagnant. But go ahead. What?
I think as far as classes become stagnant, I think they've had the ones that have been out for 10 years. I think this ability revamp really freshened up a lot of classes. I'm having fun playing old classes like I never have. And I like having different alts at different levels, just because if they make the changes to a rogue, all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to level up my rogue alt that I haven't touched in literally 2, 3, 4 expansions, honestly.
Right. We'll just see how it goes. To answer your question, Ruben, we don't know what the next race is going to be. We would like anything from what I can tell, as long as it's not something like, I don't want to be able to play a Murloc, I don't want to be able to play a Jinyu, or a Hosen, or So Help Me God, the Vermin from Miss Pandaria. Any of these really goofy, annoying things that none of us really like, don't make those a race.
What about Klaxi? Klaxi would be nice.
Klaxi would be cool. Armor on them, I think, would be very difficult. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I would rather have the Arakoa over the Klaxi, though, if we're going to go with like a flying type race.
Yeah, but I just don't think we're going to have a Galaxy unless the next expansion is Return to Pandaria.
Oh God, please no. I really, 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 really hope it's the South Seas expansion and it's under the name Eye of Ashara, because that would be wonderful and fantastic, and I would love everything about that expansion. But we'll just see. I do believe that with them not giving us new class changes, new race, new class, anything like that for Warlords, I fully believe they almost have to give us one in the next expansion. If they do start doing this expansion every year thing, and they just want to give us a change every 2 expansions, that's fine. But it's kind of not tasty not getting one this expansion. But, and I know there's a lot of people that don't care. I also know there's a lot of people that do care, and you can't make everyone happy, but it is an evolution of the game when new classes and races comes out. So I hope that helps, and even though I know we gave like 19 different answers, I enjoyed that. Let's go and do the review. Welcome to the review section. We always choose to review something every week. So far, we've only done 5-man dungeons. If you would like to request something for us to review, whether it's a raid, a storyline, a quest line, a zone, a class, or even a spec, or whatever you'd like to see us review, let us know. Just send us a tweet, send us an email, call us, let us know. We're pretty much literally just picking names out of a bucket right now. For this week, we're doing the 5-man dungeon from Warlords of Draenor, known as Grimrail Depot. The way we do our review section is that we break it into 3 different parts. That's ambiance, lore, and gameplay. Not necessarily in that order. And we give them letter grades, and at the end you get a final average out of everything that we graded, and we just give you a little bit of what we felt about the dungeon, and see if it's something that anyway, moving along. Grimrail Depot is a 5-man dungeon in Warlords of Draenor, and we will move straight into ambience right now, and Florian, kick us off.
Alright, Grimrail Depot. It's got a very nice look. It does pretty much the standard Iron Horde thing. It doesn't deviate much from that standard. I think the thing that really sets it apart from every other dungeon is the train. The train segment was awesome, and fighting while on a moving platform, I don't think we've done that before in WoW. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a very visually interesting and it felt different from everything before. And they did a really good job with train. Apparently, did it so good of a job that some people are actually getting motion sickness from the train ride. So,
which is
clearly
Go ahead.
Clearly, they've emulated motion very well.
It's unfortunate, though, because there's no way to turn it off. So, like, some people, there's also not a way to say you don't want to do a particular dungeon. So there's been a pretty decent number of people that have reported this motion sickness from the train movement. And Blizzard has said that you are actually moving. Well, maybe not you. It's something is actually moving, and it's not just like it's not just a screen that's playing. So they can't. It's not something that they can easily deactivate. So that if you are having these motion sickness problems on the train, they can't do a whole lot about it. It is a very nice dungeon, like you said. Though it's very beautiful and well done. My probably biggest issue out of them all for ambience was on the second boss. Oh my god, when he jumps in his cannon and he's rapid firing and whatever it is, he emotes like every 10 seconds when he's in that cannon. I wanted to just stab him so bad because he wouldn't stop talking. And it's not like he was, monologuing or anything like that. He had like 3 things he could say and wanted to say them as many times as he could. And it was just grinding against my brain. Now I'm the healer going, somebody kill him, please.
That's why you gotta roll discipline, so you just attack him instead. Get all your aggression out.
Oh, And the other issue I had is that the music is, the composers for World of Warcraft are fantastic, but for what we're doing, I don't feel like the music had enough power. I mean, it had some energy, but I mean, we're like, taking over this depot and jumping onto a train and you blow it up and all this kind of different stuff. And the music, it kind of just felt like, just some music.
It wasn't train robin music.
No, it didn't have enough energy in it. Did you feel that way, Evan?
The music is alright. It didn't blow me away like it did in Auchindoun. I think the ambience overall is really good. I was paying less attention to the music and more attention to the actual the motion illusion, the background setup, the actual Grimrail itself. Like Florian said, there's a kind of Iron Horde motif that is very, I guess, right up in your face. I mean, the architecture for this dungeon and all the features are very similar to that of the Iron Docks. It's like these big brown crates and lots of wood with iron railing on it, and it gets a little bit old. It's not like the Draenei architecture in Auchindoun, which I think is breathtaking. I like Skyreach a whole lot. The Arakoa architecture is amazing. The just Iron Horde, it reminds me of the Hellfire Ramparts. It's not very different from that, and I know they're trying to draw on the same inspiration so that it maintains that same kind of feel, because these are the same orcs that we're fighting, more or less, just in a different dimension. It's I don't know. I'm a Horde player. I grew up in Orgrimmar. Warspear, our Ashran Island capital city, is a lot of the same. I'm just getting a little bit tired of the this kind of design motif that they're using. However, that moment that you're talking about when he jumps into his mini cannon and the second boss and he blows off the walls of that train car, and all of a sudden you're on this big moving platform with the wind and everything, I think that's the best part of the entire dungeon, and that's what really brings its score up for me. That big reveal that you're on a big train, because you get a little tiny glimpse of it in between the cars where you're looking to the sides and going, oh no, we're moving pretty fast in this rail, but when he blows off the sides of that mine car, I think that's really cool, honestly, and little mini turrets roll out on the little tracks and everything, and kind of sparks flying from the wheels on the rails, and I think it's a really kind of fun fight.
It's beautiful. My final grade, though, A-. I'm giving it an A- because of the music and because I judged that second boss. Oh my god. What's your final grade, Evan?
I'm going to do a B. I don't really like the Iron Horde theme anymore. It's getting a little bit old, but they do, that moving train thing keeps it so fresh, and it's such a good idea, and it's such a break from the ordinary that I'll bring the grade up a little bit for that and give it a B.
And maybe with this whole motion effect and all of that, maybe we'll see something in the future. I mean, we've had a little bit of movement before, not quite, like it wasn't quite as defined as this. I mean, we've had, the fights on the airships and stuff like that.
The Spine of Deathwing too.
Yeah, it just wasn't quite as noticeable as the depot, because I mean, the clouds, even though they fly by, they're not as eye-catching as the mountains of Nagrand going by. Florian, final grade.
I'm going to give it an A because I think most of it is just competently designed. It does what it needs to do with no problems, but I am absolutely in love with the train section. For some reason, fighting on a moving vehicle is something that I absolutely love, and I never thought I would see it in Warcraft, and it makes me very happy that we've got that now. It's like the airship battle that you previously mentioned, which was one of my favorite fights in any raid ever. So simply because the train section was so well done, I got to give it an A.
All right, let's take a step into gameplay. Gameplay encompasses the trash, the boss's mechanics, everything like that. I'll open it up. For gameplay for me, the trash didn't seem overwhelmingly difficult. It really just felt like trash. I didn't feel like they were that tightly packed. like if I could give an example of what trash is, I would just give this dungeon. I mean, the trash isn't the type of trash that you really have to hard CC a lot. It's just stuff to slow you down. There's just, there's dudes on this train and you had to kill them to get to the boss. So I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of exciting stuff there. And the bosses, for me, felt super crazy and random. Did you guys feel this way? I felt like all of their mechanics were just like explosions and rockets and lasers and boom and stuff.
Yeah, they definitely put everybody with a short fuse together in this operation.
That's true, and a lot of the mechanics also just felt kind of gimmicky, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Like, especially with the second boss, there's one specific spot behind that pillar on the left side of the car you fight him in, where you can stand where the wind doesn't affect you and you don't have to deal with too many ads. You can look into the cannon. So the entire group, in every group I've been in, just ends up standing in that one spot. And it almost feels like we're cheesing the boss fight by standing there, but the boss fight is kind of built to force you to do that. And it's really weird, sort of not irregular mechanics, I guess, that just make the gameplay feel very strange and very, very different from what a standard Warcraft dungeon feels like it should be.
Well, and there's so much damage. Like with the first boss, he shoots off a bunch of rockets. Some of them are dodgeable, some of them aren't. Final boss, those lightning zones, they're not really avoidable. I mean, because they just appear. There isn't a whole lot of ability to predict where the dragon's going to put them. The Rylak, I guess, is what it actually is. It just seems like it just, so many of it just felt like it was random, but it was just like, this, we're just going to do this to you and you just have to deal with it. But it felt like it should have been avoidable, and it just felt very shotgunny is like the best word for some reason that comes to mind.
Yeah, AoE's named the game in this dungeon, seems like, and the boss mechanics, I kind of agree that they're just a little bit underwhelming. The first boss is kind of fun. You have to aim the big guy, the little guy, to interrupt the thing. I like the achievement where you use the big guy to go and smash all the valuables. That makes it a little bit more interesting. The second boss is just a big ad fight. As a tank, I don't really deal with the turrets too much. I think that's more of a DPS job to get that guy down. So for me, it's just like keeping all the ads off of the healer until the guy jumps out of the turret, and it's not very interesting for me. It's just, managing ads the entire time. As far as the trash packs, I think it is really closely packed together, especially in the first 3 cars before the second boss. Because just through my experience, we're pulling ads all the time. Big ad groups, you have to avoid the big fire they put on the ground. It's kind of cramped. I'm just really glad that there's no line-of-sight issues like you had back on the Siege of Nizhao Temple, where you're fighting the little brick layers, and it's like a kind of zigzaggy labyrinth you cannot see over the brick walls. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, it's all kind of labyrinth and zigzaggy inside those train cars, but you can, fortunately, not line-of-sight your healer very easily, so it makes it a little bit better. I think they put the forethought into it.
Well, and also in those train cars, I mean, they made it, they're not just static walls. So, I mean, as a healer, I was able to jump on top of all the boxes and stuff and just stand up there and heal things.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if they all work that way. I obviously didn't test every pile, but that was something I was able to do. The other thing is that, like, every dungeon is going to function a little bit differently. This dungeon, though, I felt that all of the work was on the healer. Like, because, like, there's not, like you said, there's not a whole lot of room, it's not hard for tanks to pick things up, and nothing really felt like anything was truly like a DPS checker anyway, but there was just so much damage going out everywhere. I mean, even in the trashes focused on the tank, they still have abilities that'll shoot like 2 or 3 other people in the raid, in the instance. And it was just, as a healer, I was just like, man, I'm having to do a lot of work here, which isn't bad by any means, but normally I feel as though things are much more focused on everybody instead of just a lot of the pressure all being put on one person.
Right, I agree with you there. Sometimes you just have to gather up all those mobs and healer heals crap out of you. The only thing I did really like about the gameplay in this dungeon is that it's short and it's sweet. You can kind of get through it no problem as long as you don't get hung up and don't wipe. It's over pretty quick. 3 bosses, not too much trash in between.
No, and I mean, beautiful, awesome effects and stuff while you're going through. Florian, did you have anything you wanted to add?
The only other thing was that I felt that the dungeon overall is a little too easy. The bosses have gimmicks, yes, but those gimmicks don't really come with that much difficulty. They can be easily figured out, and I don't think I've ever wiped in this dungeon, even on heroic. And compared to the rest of the Draenor dungeons, I feel like it was just underwhelming and a little too not enough challenge in the mechanics and gameplay.
So your grade is?
I'm going to say a C. I mean, if it was competently done, but it just wasn't difficult enough, and the bosses just felt too gimmicky.
Evan?
I'm also going to give it a C. The bosses didn't really bring anything crazy, new, or fun to the table. It was just kind of, that plus the trash packs being a little bit underwhelming as well. However, it is short, so I do like that. C.
And I am going to give it a C minus, for essentially the same reasons that you guys gave. There's just not a whole lot here in terms of gameplay. A bunch of just crazy effects everywhere, and you just have to heal through it or just move out of the way. Mm-hmm. Not a whole lot here that's intriguing in any fashion. It's all fire. It's just a different color. So gameplay overall is a flat C. And now we'll move into the lore. If you don't enjoy lore, I'm sorry. Me and Florian are huge lore buffs. Evan enjoys it to a point. And as a whole in a dungeon, it is something that matters. Some dungeons have more lore than others, and some lore is the encompassment of why that dungeon is even there. Evan, first steps on lore.
This dungeon brought a specific point to my mind that I wanted to address, and that is the presence of goblins on Draenor. I know that some of them went with Garrosh, I guess, and Kaisdormu. I guess they had to have to bring the technology there, but there seems to be quite a lot of them, more than I originally thought, because you have goblins that are probably building all their weapons, building maybe this train entirely. I'm not entirely positive if the train was already here. I'm going to assume no. I'm going to assume the train, all the boats in the iron docks, and all of the machine works in Frostfire Ridge, for example, are in Gorgorond. I think that's all since Garrosh came here with his little goblin army, and there had to have been quite a few of them there, I'm thinking.
Which raises my largest question, especially with this giant train and all of that. How long has Garrosh been here, and how long have we been here? This doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the dungeon, but it is a question that is not very well illustrated. Now, the time in Warcraft isn't very well illustrated as a whole, but from what I understood, Garrosh was not gone for very long. And, like, if you talk to some of the people in Stormshield, they say that we've already been there for months, which is probably very accurate. But, I mean, we know from, with all of our modern technology, how long it takes to build a train, and this isn't a small train, nor is the track small. How long have we been here? I mean, this is a huge train. And,
well,
go ahead.
I think the question isn't how long have we been here, but rather how long has it been since Garrosh got here? Because one of the problems with time travel is that Garrosh might have left Azeroth just a few months ago, but for all we know, he went back to a time that was, say, 5 years, 10 years before the present day in Draenor. So he could very well have been here a lot longer than we were. They could have been, and they must have been building this stuff for a lot longer than just a few months.
Sure, and that still goes into my question of with, like, the people saying, I haven't got to see my family in Stormwind for, months. I still can't comprehend how long we've been here. And also, this garrison that we built, that's a full-on castle. I mean, in our world, that takes 20 years to build. Obviously, they're quicker in Warcraft, because otherwise, my female human would be dead.
Right, no, they just put a whole lot of peons on there at once, at the same time, the peasants.
Yep, got increase that build speed.
Yeah.
It's still... I still am curious, though, of what's been really going on.
It seems to me like Garrosh arrived on Draenor right before his father drank the blood of Manoroth, which was, I guess, 30 years prior to the present day, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's stayed there the entire time. Maybe not for 30 years, though, but just long enough for them to start building up the army, and then you get to the point where you're ready to invade Azeroth, and then you open up the Dark Portal and go all the troops. Their opening up the Dark Portal, of course, is happening in our present day, present time, so it seems like the Dark Portal is not only bridging the gap between the two planets and the two alternate realities, but also it's a portal through time, too, because I think they didn't spend 30 years there, or else Garrosh should be all old-looking, I presume.
Yeah. Reportedly, orcs have the same lifespan as humans. Anyway, before we keep on going, that doesn't have anything to do with this dungeon.
No.
On lore... Go ahead.
Yeah, just the only thing I'll say about the whole thing is that, I don't understand the goblins, really. I didn't do any relevant questing, I don't think, in Northern Gorgrond that would explain what the whole operation is, what the giant weapon is. I didn't have any prelude to this really at all. I just kind of went into this dungeon blind, and then after hitting 100, I still haven't gotten that idea. So I'm going to say it's a C, just because I don't really know anything about it. It seems like it fits the lore, so to speak, but I don't have any extra lore sources at all. I don't know what quests are relevant.
Well, I believe I have done all of the quests in Gorgrond and almost all of them in the Grand, and there's not a whole lot of info on this train. And also with this like big bad weapon that's on the train, of the reason we're going there to blow it up and stuff like that, we've already done this like 4 times since we got to Draenor. Like, I am really like, I understand that these guys are big and bad, but how many big bad weapons can they really have? Like, and it always looks the same too. Like, besides like the Dark Star with the dying Naru and Shadow Moon, for the most part, this big bad weapon is always a giant Iron Star cannon.
Right.
I mean, the one on the boat in Shatrath, giant Iron Star cannon. The one on this train, giant Iron Star cannon. Come on. But the characters in here, the bosses, I really feel like they're literally just boss number 126, boss number 127, boss number 128, ability number 39. Like, there's, from what I could find, no connection lore-wise between anyone or anything in this dungeon besides, it's Iron Horde, it's bad, stop it. Florian, where were you feeling on that?
I would agree with that. You know, I thought at first that I must have missed a quest chain in Gorgrond, or I must have missed some kind of exposition somewhere explaining this. So I did some Googling, and I still can't find any significant details on what's going on here or why we're here. And that, I think, really hurts the dungeon lore-wise. It almost feels like they built the dungeon intending for it to play into a quest chain, and then just didn't get the quests done for whatever reason. Like something that they started and then didn't finish. The only thing that I can really take out of this lore-wise is that trains now exist in World of Warcraft.
Well, we had the tram.
Well, that's not really a train, though. That's just like, it's just a platform you stand on. It's not a proper train.
I suppose.
If that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
All that. Yeah, I'm going to have to give this thing a D. The only reason I don't give it an F is because it has a train, and I like trains.
I can't decide what my grade is. It's somewhere between an F and a D. There's nothing here lore-wise. It's literally just a dungeon. Yeah, like, I feel like this is something out of, like if James Bond had a TV show, this would be one of the filler episodes. There's a bad thing on the train, go get it. Okay. Is, like, Oddjob piloting it? No. Why are you sending me? Why can't we just send, 009? I don't know. So
somebody from Storm Intelligence.
Yeah, I'm just going to give... I'll just give it a D minus overall. I feel like there's a little bit here, so I can't quite give it an F because it doesn't fail completely, but it's definitely empty. So yeah, I'll give it a D minus overall. That brings our grade to about a D. Evan's generous C brings it to maybe a D plus between me and Florian saying no. So that gives us an A minus in ambience, a C in gameplay, and a D in lore. So that really gives this like a C plus hardcore overall on the final score. That's compared to what we did for the last 2 5-man dungeons that were Warlords of Draenor. This one got a pretty harsh grade. Proof that even though it's big, new, and pretty, it's not exactly great. It's a dungeon. I guess it'll get you gear.
It will get you gear, and it won't take too long either. It's not like UBRS, fortunately. So it's the dungeon for a guy who doesn't have very much time to do a full dungeon.
Well, and that's the thing, though. I mean, most of the time you're just grabbing the random dungeon. So, I mean, I guess it's convenient if you get it, but for the most part, you're going to just be getting one of the however many we have. So it's kind of hard to say of what you're actually going to get. So, take that as you will, listeners. It's a dungeon. And enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at the final grade. I mean, that seems harsh considering that we gave ambience an A. I mean, the ambience of the place is really sweet. I mean, it's like an exciting theme for a dungeon, being on a moving train, speed into the thing, the walls fall down, you're getting blown by the wind. I think it's awesome, honestly. It's just the gameplay. I mean, those boss mechanics, although they're Warlords of Draenor caliber bosses. I mean, it's not like a tank and spank like we have back in the, Burning Crusade, It's just, I don't know, there's a lot of other examples of dungeons that are really popping as far as gameplay and really lore intensive. This one just seemed like almost not as much was, poured into it as far as lore, and it's one of the less exciting dungeons as far as gameplay, so that's why I got scored a little bit low.
And that's why we look at all of the pieces to it. I mean, because aesthetic-wise, it's a beautiful dungeon. But that's all it has. I mean, don't judge a book by its cover. She needs to be smart, not just pretty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even though the ambience is so good, the rest of it falls so flat that it's just going to drag it down. And that's why we do break it into the sections, because even if there is something that we really like a lot, other things will just completely wreck it. Which is unfortunate, but that's the way review works. So let's close this thing up. That is the end of the show, everybody. Thank you again for listening. As always, our show contact is thecastbar@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @CastbarPodcast. You can call us at 508-738-2278. Our old shows are always available on iTunes and Stitcher. We will, if you have another method that you would like us to have it available, let us know, and I'll look into trying to get that set up. The music for our bumpers is all done by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at incomtech.com, royalty free under the Creative Commons license. Buy it, use it for free, give him credit, your choice. If you would like to talk to me directly, send me an email, send us a message on the Facebook. We do have a Facebook now. Also, my personal Twitter is @SchwanMichael. Evan, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter @EDCWow.
And then always, just if you want to send something to him, otherwise direct it to his attention via the email or whatever else. And Florian, how can people talk to you?
They can't yet. If they really want to talk to me, they can email the podcast, but I will have something next week.
Really?
I promise this time.
Oh,
yes.
my.
Oh. Ooh.
Oh, no. Change is happening. I don't know if I'm prepared. All right. Anyway,
watch. He'll post his battle tag. Everybody can just friend request him.
Oh no! Don't do that. Take it from people like Nobble, who like gets his battle tag leaked all the time, and he's a lore buff on YouTube, and he's no. Just from what he said alone, I'm like, even if we're small, I don't want my battle tag just flying around. As always, I'm going to close out this show. Not as always. And right now, I'm going to remind you again about the Argi giveaway. If you'd like a chance at this free Argi pet, get in there, get the entries, help get our name out there, and get a chance to actually win this pet for free. Remember, follow and retweet on Twitter, follow and share on Facebook, iTunes review, answer the question. You can answer the question in any personalized manner, whether it's a message on Facebook or a email. That question again is, which Horde exclusive mount was added in patch 3.2 to counterbalance the Alliance exclusive mount, the Winter Spring Frost Saber? So send in your answers to get another bonus entry. And you can send those if you need the email again. That is thecastbar@gmail.com. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and have a wonderful day. Take it easy, guys.